A chicken just doesn't have it within its system to produce a duck egg. It can't do it. It can only produce according to what that particular system was constructed to produce. The system in this country cannot produce freedom for an Afro-American. It is impossible for this system, this economic system, this political system, this system, period. It's impossible for this system, as it stands, to produce freedom right now for the black man in this country. And if ever a chicken did produce a duck egg, I'm quite sure you will say it was certainly a revolutionary chicken. Malcolm X. What's up, y'all? It's Mr. Ernest Crim the third, your favorite Black history teacher. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Crim's Class podcast. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with y'all today. We're going to have a great conversation. You already know how we do this, y'all. I got to check in with you. So you're back in class, you're ready to learn, you got your notebooks, you got all that prepared, but I got to know how you're feeling. So on a scale from 1 to 10, let me know in the chat how you feeling. In the comment section, wherever you are, find some type of place to check in with me or to just check in with yourself and sit still for a moment. I would say for me right now, I'm going to give myself a solid 8.7. Yeah, I'm going to say an 8.7, almost at a 9. Almost at a 9. I'm feeling good though. Again, I just got finished with a workout, got some stuff done this morning. But at the same time, at the time of this recording, there's a lot to get done before the holiday break, before Christmas break. And you know how that is, y'all, when you're trying to get everything done before the world kind of shuts down for those 2 weeks. So that's where I am right now. But I want to know where you are, too, because we got to be able to see where we are mentally before we move forward. And with that said, now that you've checked in with yourself, let's do some deep breathing. All right. So we're going to do our 3, 4, 5 deep breathing technique. And it's important, y'all, to always tell my K through 5 online Black History Club students that the reason why we do this is we want to give ourselves practical tools to be able to calm ourselves down in any situation. Because when you are dealing with stress and you are feeling overwhelmed or you're just feeling overburdened with the world, you have to tell your body, tell yourself that you are okay in this moment. And the best way to do that is to control your breathing. Because when we do that, we're telling ourselves that, you know what, it's okay right now. We can handle this. Because we tell our minds, we tell our body what we are actually going through. The stress we encounter, they don't know if that stress was something that we were dealing with a couple hundred years ago where there may have been more wild animals, or if it's just stress we're dealing with when we're scrolling through a comment section. So regardless of what it is, we have to take control as best we can. So let's breathe together, y'all. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, breathe in. Hold it. And release. And I'm going to give you a couple moments to do it again by yourself this time. Let's do one more, y'all. All right. We're back in the place to be. Like I said, y'all, it's a pleasure to be with y'all again. This is the 3rd episode, the 3rd class on this journey. And look, before we get into the content for the day, I got a quick rant, because look, when I was a classroom teacher, my kids know before I go into the lesson, I'm going to see how y'all doing. And then I'm going to let off some steam and just kind of tell you what's been going on my life because I got to release it. Look, I know a lot of y'all know, but I got to reiterate this. The healthcare system in this country is horrible. As we stand, healthcare premiums are going up all across the country already, right? We know that the Affordable Care Act, AKA some people refer to it as Obamacare, is not something a lot of conservatives and Republicans wanted in this country. Quite frankly, we need and want universal health care, but that's just not where this country is in terms of being able to agree upon something that's common sense. For some reason, that just doesn't make sense to people, but we can send billions and billions of dollars overseas to eradicate entire groups of people and disenfranchise ourselves here. But that's a story for another day. The issue is they make it entirely too difficult in this country to use healthcare, even if you have it. And to make matters worse, healthcare premiums are going up all across the country right now. So unless you are a part of that 1% and you're someone who, has a doctor on speed dial that comes to you at your beck and call, it is a very difficult time for a lot of people across the world. And I'm feeling this more than ever because, coming off the holiday break, the one that we refer to as Thanksgiving, I was feeling a little low. I ain't gonna lie. I'm at an 8.7 now, but at that point in time, I was probably feeling it like a 2 or a 3. So I said, you know what, let me do something that I have not done. It had been 8 years, roughly 8 years since I have seen a therapist. Now, in between that time, I found a whole bunch of different ways to help myself mentally. And I think that's a very important aspect too, because it's not just about seeing a therapist. It's about finding ways for you to heal yourself, right? It's also about finding ways to heal as a group, communally. But I felt like at that point in time, I needed to have somebody that I could refer to and have a conversation with. That was about 2 weeks ago at the time of this record, y'all. And I'm here to tell you, I still ain't found somebody because here's the thing. I got HMO insurance. Unless you are going to a doctor that is going to prescribe you something, they make it very, very difficult to just see a therapist, a psychologist. So they give me a list of people who might be on my insurance. And when I first looked at that list, y'all, it was like 400, 500 people. But then when I disaggregated it to people who are actually in my healthcare plan, that list went down to like 5 people. 5 people that I could see. Now, if I wanted to see a medical doctor, again, that list is extremely long. So I started Googling some of the names, right? I Googled some of those names. And one of the doctors, one of the psychologists I came across was actually a brother, a black man. And y'all know it is very difficult in this country as a black man to find a therapist who looks like you. So I got excited, right? I called the office and lo and behold, they were like, oh no, he's actually not under your insurance plan anymore. So now I'm thinking like, how y'all got him listed though? So of course now I'm interrogating them. Like why would he be listed if he's not actually on the insurance? And they are telling me this whole little thing about, well, sometimes the insurance provider doesn't update it and so on and so forth. So I go to the next person. I make a call. The same thing, right? And when you are trying to see a therapist, especially someone who has my experiences and, my points of views, I want to make sure this is somebody that's really going to listen to me regardless of their background, will be able to connect with me. Then I came across an older gentleman, white guy. He seemed like he had been practicing for maybe 40-something years. I saw some of his books. I said, you know what? I think I can connect with him. Again, same issue. So I'm saying this for everybody out there that's feeling my pain. And this is just for something, this is just me trying to sit down and have a conversation with somebody. Now, imagine what a lot of other folks are going through across this country. Folks who don't have access to health care at all. Imagine what that's going to look like as we move into 2026 and move forward with this administration. Because like I said before on episode 2, they are attempting to disenfranchise and literally kill folks in every aspect, right? This is total war we're talking about. We're talking about taking away SNAP benefits. We're making it more difficult for people to access health care. Grocery prices are going up. AI is replacing jobs. So there are a variety of different ways that we are being bombarded in this moment. And more than ever, we have to find ways to support each other and build community and maintain community, because what's very unfortunate is a lot of folks are attempting to pay for health care, you already know, with GoFundMe links. That shouldn't be the case. And what's even more diabolical about it is like, if you live near the border, and I'm talking like the northern border, you cross over to Canada, all that stuff is included. Universal health care. It ain't free, they pay taxes. And they say we want everybody to be taken care of, right? It's the same thing I get when, on that same note, shout out to libraries. I got a library book on my book list right here, right now, my book stack for those who are watching this virtually. We need to go to libraries more, and I fell back in love with the library recently because I often do work there. Like I might grab some coffee, go to the library, do some work. Sometimes I conduct interviews for a project I'm doing at the library, but also too, I forgot that you could rent things from the library. Now, I know we don't use Blockbuster. We don't do family video. And, for my OGs, Hollywood video, which used to exist way, way back in the day. But my kids have a Nintendo Switch. And I was like, man, we ain't got a new game in a long time. So I was walking out the library recently and I saw a couple Nintendo Switch games. And I grabbed a couple games. I got Street Fighter. Shout out to the OGs that used to play Street Fighter. I was going to get Mortal Kombat, but they was, you was going to have to pay a little something for the online play. So we didn't do that, right? I got Street Fighter. I got this Mario game. And I was just thinking like, this is already paid for, and I get it for 2 weeks. Like when we used to rent from Blockbuster before they got rid of the late fees because they got really frustrated with us not returning stuff. You got what, like 5 days, right? And until they started tagging on different late fees and things like that. But the library, y'all, you get 2 weeks. So look, I'm saying all this to say, for one, I do need a sponsor for this podcast, so hit me up. But also, too, this is officially sponsored by your local library or library, whatever you want to say. Go there. Use those resources before they are taken away. Why am I saying this? Because we should have universal health care, right? Just like we have a library, a place where everybody and anybody can go. You don't have to pay for entry. You don't have to pay for your library card because we all give into this pot and we say, here, here, you can have it. And just to close off this rant, you know how this is why libraries are so important. Not just that. Think about how in a capitalist society, there are so few places, y'all, so few places where if you were just out and about, you can just pull over and go to the restroom. Like you be in a city like Chicago or otherwise, and they got signs plastered everywhere. No public restrooms, right? A library don't care. You come in there, come as you are. The library functions like the church should in some aspects. Come as you are. You can use the internet. You can go here. You can just chill all day until we close. And that is why we need universal health care. Y'all see that connection? Okay. All right. Let's keep it moving. Speaking of the community, y'all, So there's been so much going on in this world. And what I really want us to gather from this conversation is it's up to us to create things that are better. I opened up with a quote from Malcolm X for a reason. I want us to understand that this system, racial capitalist system, does not want to have justice or liberation, quite frankly, for anybody, but especially if you are black in this country, which means that if the system does not produce it, in his example, he talks about how a chicken is not going to produce a duck egg, right? That's why we are so shocked if we see, let's say, a white officer kill a black man and get a little prison time. We like, dang, I can't believe it. But the thing is, even with that, that's not even fully them producing the metaphorical duck egg. That's them giving us a little leeway for the time being. The system is almost like it's a conveyor belt. It is designed to produce something by the end of that belt, by the time it comes off. And everybody on that conveyor belt and that assembly line has a role. Right? If you were working in a factory where you made a toy and your job was to put the head on top and then the next person was to put the leg and the other person put the other leg and the other arms. That's the way the system functions. And then somebody might say, why don't we create more durable toys, even though we have the capability to? We have those resources. We can make a toy that's more durable so that by the time it leaves this conveyor belt, this assembly line, and goes to a store or to a child, they won't have to buy another toy. But that's not what the system, this factory, wants to do. Because even with that, there's something called planned obsolescence, right? We see it with our phones. We see it with our toys, right? We see it with our headphones that are supposed to last a while, right? That's why they want us to pay a little extra to get that warranty, right? is planned obsolescence, meaning that they're going to give you the product. It's going to look nice, but after a certain time, it's going to be obsolete. That's what this system is. We could produce justice as an entire entity, but that's not what they want. They want you to keep needing them and keep believing that they'll provide something better within this. That's not to say don't keep fighting for those of us who are within that, because we all are within it in some capacity, but it means that we have to have better methods of creating and producing justice outside of it, right? An aspect of that can be creating your own, going back, to the farm and beyond creating your own business, I would say. It's like now when we say support Black-owned businesses, in a lot of ways that has to transform to support Black co-ops, because the business support isn't good if the owner is still disenfranchising the workers. Regardless of the color, if the disenfranchisement is still occurring, then we are still in the same system. We can't beat capitalism with capitalism. It requires Black ownership that seeks to pay everyone a living wage, for example, right? It's about Black mutual aid. So like supporting folks, maybe they don't have a nonprofit set up. So you might not be able to get that tax benefit, but it's the same mentality we had growing up and still exists in some places when we would go to our neighbor and ask them if we could borrow something from them because we couldn't go to the store, or maybe we didn't have the time. There was no technology at the time that could deliver us the items we needed. We could go to somebody next to us. We have to bring that back. And I'm reminded of what this community support looks like and does not look like based on a recent story I came across that y'all may have seen. And I want to kind of preface this by talking about the fact that, man, I don't know about y'all, but I come from an era where we would go to the mall and we would really just go there just to kick it. It was a third space for us, especially before we even had a job as teens to be able to afford something from a mall. You would just go there with your friends on a Friday, Saturday, walk around for hours, do a little window shopping. And even if I didn't buy anything, y'all, I can guarantee you that if I went to that mall, I was going to walk out with at least one thing. And the one thing I was going to walk out with was a Cinnabon. Yeah, a Cinnabon. Auntie Anne's is cool. The pretzels, they all right. But it was nothing like that Cinnabon. And especially when you young and you ain't really thinking about your health like that, right? I could have ate one of them things every day. So I'm reminded of that nostalgia because I came across this story where this Cinnabon worker went absolutely berserk in Minnesota, I believe. Was berating this Somali couple with the N-word, and it appeared to be they were just interacting with her, right? I want to talk about not just what happened in that instance, but I want to talk about what we do in those moments moving forward as someone who dealt with the hate crime similarly. You can roll the clip.
Sexualizing your body makes you a better person.
Are you recording?
I'm gonna record you. Yes.
Do you want me to throw water on you? I am racist.
So idiot for
and
real.
You are an
idiot. No,
I
I'm
am
not.
racist, and I'll say that to the whole entire world. Don't be disrespectful.
You ruined your life, by the way.
Oh, talking about
Bye.
you talking about respect? You talking about respect? You are fired from this place, man. You're not gonna be working here. Sackwag. Look how you talking about ugliness?
Did I stutter?
You're the ugliest person I ever seen in my life.
Good.
We're not? No, we're not. No, we're not.
Because you know damn well you're evil.
Keep squeezing that caramel. Get the fuck out of here.
So this.
All right, we could cut that. All right. So in response to that disturbing video, which actually happened in Wisconsin, Cinnabon released a statement following that viral video in which a white woman was berating a Somali customer with the N-word and just racial harassment. They said, and I quote, "We've seen the disturbing video from the Cinnabon Bakery in Wisconsin, and we do not condone this behavior. The former employee was immediately terminated by the franchise owner," the statement read. Their actions do not reflect our values or the welcoming experience every guest deserves. Close quote. Now, one of the reasons why I felt compelled to even be here with you today, many of you might know that on July 30th, 2016, me and my wife dealt with something very similar. It's hard to believe, y'all, that it was 9.5 years ago at this point, nearly a decade at the time of this recording. And I can relate to this experience so much because just like that person there, we were minding our business. The difference in our situation was we were not, it wasn't a customer encounter or conversation, but we were at an event together. And a disagreement over who was using a beanbag, which could have been easily resolved, turned into her screaming at us, cursing at us, calling the cops on us, and calling us the N-word. And I started to record that interaction for a variety of reasons, right? I recorded the interaction because, look, it was 4 of them, surprisingly to a lot of folks, 2 black, 2 white folks. And she was calling the cops towards us as she is racially harassing us. In my mind, I got to be prepared to document anything that might transpire. Also, too, in the back of my head, y'all, I felt honestly in 2016 that when I was recording this, that it would lead to some form of justice, regardless of what happened with her and us in that moment. In fact, it escalated. It went from the N-word to her spitting on me and my wife. The police eventually came. They escorted her out. But she committed a crime. This is now, the next day, August of 2016. The context was similar in many ways. Hate crimes are on the rise, y'all. The president who we have now in office was running for his first term, and many people didn't think that he had a chance at all to win, right? Obama was actually still the president at this point in time. So when people saw something like that, just like now, there was disgust. I got her information the same day. There were so many people contacting me and hoping and wishing that something harmful happened to that person because they had a similar experience. Over the next 2 months, the video spread, the story spread. She got arrested in August of 2016 October of 2016. By the following October, 2017, we go to trial. I went through the whole process, y'all, whole process. I wanted to get any form of justice this system could give me. Again, not full justice from a system that helped produce somebody like that. It's just not possible. But I wanted to carry this out as long as I could because I knew what I deserved and I knew what was right. The judge in that situation opted to not hold on or keep the felony charge of a hate crime. He didn't think it was necessary, which is absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous. But people come into these jobs with biases, right, and their own experiences and backgrounds like everybody else. But they did keep the assault charge, and she was sentenced to 3 months in jail in Chicago, 26 in California, which, if you know about that place, not the most, no jail is ideal to be in, but especially 26 in California. I was okay with the result. I know more should have been done, but I had long resolved that I needed to do more outside of teaching in the class after experiencing that. Because for me, justice wasn't just whatever I got on that day. Justice was me committing to educating our children in a way that would allow them to have the fortitude, the determination, the wherewithal, the intellect regarding our background to fight through something like that internally first. Because oftentimes when we see that, we are so compelled to say what we would have done or what should have been done in that situation by the target, regardless of what the target does, whether they fight back violently or not. What that person has to then grapple with is fighting with themselves every day after that to remind themselves that they are not that which they were told they were and denigrated for. That person wants you to feel less than a human being by using that word, right? There are so many other ways that black people can be made to feel less than. There are so many synonyms, unfortunately, right? Thug, gangster, right? And even just the utterance of, Chicago, depending on how you say it, makes people scared sometimes for some reason because of media propaganda. But on the highest level of that overt and intentional disrespect to black people is that word. So there's a reason why it's weaponized, right? So I knew that I could never prevent a white person from doing that or anybody from doing something, but it's almost like martial arts. Mentally, you should know how to defend yourself. And defending yourself and fighting back goes a lot further than laying hands on somebody. And as someone who grew up in an environment where that was common, where we fought frequently, often, daily, I realized as I began to mature and grow older that I had to devise different ways to fight. Which brings me to this situation. Unfortunately, as of this recording, I do not know the name of the targets, right? But I do know as I came across this story, and I did not spend a lot of time reading up on it because, it was my experience. I've seen it too many times. I was the one holding the camera, right? One of the main differences, right, between what happened with this situation in December of 2025 and what happened to me in July of 2016 is I do not fully believe in this moment that recording those interactions will produce justice for the target of racism. It's really weird to say this and reflect on it because we have been taught and inundated with the lie and fallacy that things just get better with time, when in fact they don't, right? Your wound, if it's a slight wound, could heal with time because your body naturally works towards healing. As humans, we just feel like we have a proclivity to do the exact same thing, when in fact, our human nature, as we have been socialized, right? I would say our human nature is to make things better, but we have been socialized to not actually do that in this society. It's to always worry about self. It's me, I. Capitalism produces individualism to the detriment of us all. We cannot survive without each other. It also makes us think that by all of us reaching our highest potential and what we go after, that we are helping out society as a whole, which isn't always the case if us reaching our fullest potential means that we always go towards the dollar or we're chasing the carrot, right? So because of that, from 2016 to 2025, you would think that by recording that, I would see a 9-year improvement or advancement on how systems respond to that and how justice is produced. Now, I will say there was a significant element of social progress from, let's say, 1966 to 2016 when I dealt with that. Because if that happened to me in 1966, for one, I wouldn't be able to record it in that manner. But also, two, nobody would try to take that to trial. That would just be a regular day in Alabama, a regular day in Georgia, a regular day in certain neighborhoods in Chicago, too, because it was all in the North as well. So what happened between 2016 and 2025 that is causing me to say this? Well, the person who assaulted us, she wasn't able to start a GoFundMe off of that and gained, 6 figures. This woman, as of this recording, who assaulted them verbally by using the N-word, has raised nearly $200,000. There are people who are championing her as a free speech advocate and essentially saying she was wronged because she was fired for berating them. Nearly $200,000. Do you understand what some folks can do with that? Let's go back to the conversation we started off with about healthcare. There are folks every day starting GoFundMes for healthcare. Folks need to raise $100,000 for procedures, can't get past $100. But in this society, this twisted society we live in, this social construction, this social experiment that we have refused to make better, even though we have the capacity and the ability to, someone can be working likely just above a minimum wage job at a mall, and that in itself is problematic because even beyond her, let's remove her. No one should be just getting by working full time. But that person could be working that job, call a black person the N-word, get recorded, and gain 4 years worth of income. Maybe more than 4 years worth of income. That's the problem. From 2016 to 2025, America has devolved socially. Or even beyond that, America has gone back to what the president says initially made it great. There is a de-evolution because there are children who were born around the time that happened to me in 2016 who are 9 years old now, who are using those words towards black kids, towards any minoritized group in this country. Because while I'm on the way here, I'm looking at my inbox and I'm getting contacted by school districts across the country who are dealing with this issue as young as third grade. That's 8 or 9. I dealt with that 9.5 years ago. We are literally going backwards if we continue to produce people who by the age of 8 or 9 don't even know what a word means, but feel they have the authority to use it towards a person of a different color. Because y'all, whenever I talk to a group of kids, if I'm talking to a group of a mixed audience, and I ask them who has heard that word used or who has had that word used against them, I can say 75%. Black, Latino, white folks are raising their hands or whatever, mostly, of course, black students. If I ask people who knows what that word means, I might get 3 people. That is powerful and heavy because when we talk about this word, it's not just the word, it's the entire context of it that makes it mean something in this moment and makes it sting even more in this moment because we have seen that a belief and adherence to everything and all the violence that preceded the word and came after the word is what can give you power, authority, and wealth in this country in 2025 and 2026 and beyond until otherwise proven. That lady, and she's probably still raising money as we speak. The reason why I mislabeled this incident that's happening in Minnesota is because a few months back, April of 2025, this year has really blown by, there was a situation in Rochester, Minnesota, where there was a white woman who was calling a black child the N-word, right? Some of y'all might remember this story. She was calling a black child the N-word. And that video was posted for justice. She went on to raise over $800,000, y'all. $800,000 for being openly racist, hostile, and violent towards a black child. Did she raise more money because she attacked the child? Think about that. 800,000 plus for berating a child. 9.5 years ago, I recorded that video with the thought in my mind that this could be used for social justice at the very least. 9.5 years later, I'm telling you, if you are in a situation like that, it is probably best not to record it. It is probably within your best interest not to record that situation. When I talk to audiences, there are a variety of things I tell people. And one of the key things I would tell a black audience or any group that has dealt with historical trauma like this, there is no right way to respond to trauma. There is only a right way to survive. Reflecting on what I dealt with, we realized that there are a few ways we can respond in that moment, instinctively sometimes. There's the fight response. There's flight. There's freezing. And there's fawning. We have to respond in that moment in a way that can help us survive. Okay? Whatever that is in that moment, you have to exercise that to the best of your ability. It could possibly be fight, depending on the circumstances. It could possibly be leaving, flight. Freeze, you might be stuck in the moment because you can't believe what's happening. Fawning would be you making an excuse for what's happening in that moment, which some folks do. In my situation, the two black friends that were with her were making excuses for what the white friend was doing. But by all means, I am highly, highly recommending that you do not take out your phone to record it in this political climate. In this social climate, what you might be doing is emboldening another person to make a career that is filled with hate. It's unfortunate because when we do that, we are in shock that it's happening. And we are believing in that moment that the world, the country, our community will see this and will help us get justice. The unfortunate reality, y'all, is using that word is not against the law. We would like to think that it should be. And honestly, the actions that have proven that word to feel justified in its usage are technically illegal. The lynchings, right? Technically. I mean, but we don't know about that, right? Because sometimes they don't get investigated. The beatings, right? The disenfranchisement in your community, the food deserts, the redlining. We would like to think that treatment is illegal. But we know for sure the word, right? The word, like you can say it. In my situation, it was different because assault followed with spit. If you are recording that happening, you are providing entertainment for a group of people that don't even like you. Just like in the civil rights movement, when they would prepare themselves when they went through these protests for the inevitability of encountering racist attacks like this by training for how they would respond, we have to consider that. We have to go through the varieties of ways in which we should respond. And again, as someone who dealt with this, I will tell you that every situation is different and provides different options. But the chief option in response has to ultimately be getting out safely and alive. Sometimes we feel like we have to respond with physical force to do that. Other times you will have to honestly swallow your pride. I know we don't want to hear that a lot of times, but sometimes it requires swallowing your pride and leaving as soon as you can. At the same time that this lady in Minnesota raised over $800,000 and this Cinnabon worker raised nearly $200,000, we have Fred Hampton Jr. trying to raise money to recover the home his father was assassinated in and can barely get to six figures with that. At the same time, we got my brother Mike Africa Jr. attempting to raise $400,000. Right? He's trying to raise $400,000 to recover the home that was demolished and bombed by the Philadelphia Police Department in 1985. He wants $400,000. Has been raising his money for a while. He's at nearly $27,000. Trying to recover a home that was the target of police terrorism and violence in Philadelphia. Happened over 40 years ago. So he can turn it into a museum, a memorial for the community so we don't go back to those places. And he's struggling to get to $30,000. Call a black child the N-word, $800,000. try to raise money for a home that the city of Philadelphia, the police department bombed. $27,000 out of $400,000. The difference is maddening. So what this means to me in this situation, and situations similarly, is we have to surround and protect each other with the same intensity that those who oppose justice do. We have to then say, when we see somebody accosted or when we see somebody struggling to redeem a part of history, we have to donate with the same intensity. We, as a community of people who are committed to justice, a variety of backgrounds, of course, we have everything it takes to do what they did and more for the right cause. Like, we are living in the midst of the evil villain winning. This ain't a Marvel movie. This ain't a DC movie. And it ain't just the evil villain is winning while sitting in their lair. It's they have the whole city behind them. Usually in those movies, they want a superhero to come. They're begging for the superhero. We collectively are the superhero, though. Just like they are converging together to support that type of maliciousness, that lady can have $1 million because she called a black child the N-word. Every person who is the target of a racial injustice in this country as a result of our support should have millions. That ain't going to heal the wound, but they should not have to think again about trying to find another job, trying to get some income. Because when you are in this country and dealing with varying levels of trauma, the last thing on your mind is you wanted to find another job or wanted to make a living. But because that's what you have to do to get by, you push so much of that trauma you've dealt with to the back. And it compounds until one day you might snap. That's what it's going to take for us to get a form of justice. The type of justice that we desire, y'all, at this point in time in history is not something that can be produced by the court. Whether it be a local court, county court, state court, Supreme Court, so-called Supreme Court, we have to begin to really reflect on what that means for us. Again, I work with schools, I work with educators, students across the country who are dealing with this, and there are conversations to be had that are quite way more expansive than we can have than an hour podcast. But we have to look at ways in which we can support each other, go through what you do in that moment, and then more importantly, what you do to heal after. 9.5 years later, hundreds of speaking engagements, thousands of people, millions of people impacted online, I felt compelled and driven to do this because I couldn't stand for that to happen to somebody else without knowing what to do moving forward. And that's why learning this history is so important. And oftentimes when we think about and ponder about how we can help each other produce justice, we can quite frankly get distracted, right? We can assume that everybody that's dealing with something that looks like us is dealing with a similar plight, right? I'm thinking of Diddy right now. And I'm saying this because Diddy reminds me of something in our community that we have to truly grapple with. And it is a lack of accountability when it comes to folks of a certain pedigree, of a certain title. Assuming that everybody that looks like us is dealing with an injustice that they placed themselves in can distract us from the real cases and situations that we should be focusing on. By now, many of y'all probably seen the documentary, the docuseries, Diddy The Reckoning, which was on Netflix. At this point, it feels like half the world has probably seen it because every time I go on Netflix again, it's listed up there in top 1 or 2, right? When I think about everything that Diddy did, for one, I reflect on the fact that he didn't get enough time. Let's be real about that. He did not get enough time. I think about the fact that that documentary illuminated to us that there were some jury members who were so caught up in his celebrity that they couldn't practice proper judgment in that situation. They were caught in the allure of the music and the nostalgia that they produced for them, that they couldn't think about how evil the deeds he engaged in were. And when we are talking about being accountable and producing justice and finding ways to really imagine what that looks like, we have to weed out the people who serve as distractions from what we truly want to create. Diddy was a leech, a capitalist of the highest degree that did not care about anything and anyone but making money. Oftentimes, almost always on the backs of us. Because all the while he was singing and dancing and making that money, he was abusing women in our community. He was allegedly instigating rap beefs and things of that nature. He was not paying people what they were supposed to be compensated for after they produce art for him. But we have to go back in time when talking about Diddy because, for one, there's a component of, the household he was brought up in. What was his mom exposing him to that he should not have been exposed to? That's one aspect that I reflect on watching that. Something else I think about, this is something that I was not made aware of until I read Mark Curry's book about Diddy some years ago. Shout out to Mark Curry for being bold enough to speak about that. I think he wrote the book in 2009 at a time when, folks were still scared to speak up. But he talked about how Diddy created an event somewhere in New York. The exact location escapes me at the moment. But he created an event in which they sold too many tickets, and because of his decision and some other folks too, it wasn't just him, people died because they were trampled over because the place was over capacity. And I reflect in that moment how Diddy was not held accountable for what he did then. And I think about that over the course of time because that lack of accountability in that moment did not teach him a lesson. It did not teach him the lesson he should have learned. He went on to do more egregious things, believe it or not. He was very young at that point in time. But if you look about what happened then and transpired in the early 90s, and then you go all the way to 2025 and you hear about what was allegedly done with Kid Cudi and what was allegedly done with Tupac and various other people and the situation with Shine. And you think like, why weren't people speaking up sooner? Are we that struck with fame and the opportunity to make money in this capitalist system that we are willing to turn a blind eye to anybody in our community that looks like us and parades themselves as Black excellence? Black excellence, quote unquote, does not equate to Black power. And I hope that Diddy serves as an example of what we have to be striving for. Less Black excellence, more Black power, right? Less Black excellence, more Black community, more Black mutual aid. Because we know that when Black communities are empowered, everyone is empowered. But living through that time period when Diddy was coming of age, many of us thought that the only way we could achieve and be a success was to go after capital, wear the shiny suits, and be like him. What I want us to understand in this moment, as I get ready to wind this down, is what we should learn from Diddy is that we must always be more accountable in our community than what we demand of the system. Because to demand more of the system than we do ourselves is to say that we believe more in that which has continually produced violence, then we believe in our own ability to produce justice and community and equity. For example, I want to give you some historical perspective. One of my favorite groups to study is the Black Panther Party. I feel like they were everything that we say we need and want in this moment. When we think about the boldness, when we think about the flair they had, the style, right? We think about what they advocated for, the focus on feeding children, the way that they abrasively went at police that were abusing us, the way they studied. They demanded 2 hours of reading a day. They demanded new members go through 12 weeks of political education. When we talk about not just that, but the idea that they knew that you also had to study the success of other communities, that they knew that we could recruit folks who were coming out of jail because they just got caught up in the system, and they could recruit people who were in gangs because, again, they were just caught up in a system that was using them nefariously, but put in the proper environment, they would grow and flourish the way they needed to. They knew the importance of racial solidarity and class solidarity. And many of them were doing this, y'all, at a very young age. We're talking that the average age of the Black Panthers was 20. We talking most of the members, y'all, were women, 60%. We're talking outside of Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale, the founders, the first member officially, Bobby Hutton, was 16. We talking they were getting students in high school, sophomores, juniors to join their organization. And this connection that I'm making with Sean Combs is the fact that a lot of people know that they had a 10-point plan, right? The Black Panthers were demanding something of the system. They said, we want freedom, right? Number one. They said, we want full employment for our people. Number two. They said, we want an end to the robbery by the capitalists of our community. Number three. They said, we want decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings. Number four. They said, five, we want education for our people that exposes the true nature of this decadent American society. They want education that teaches our true history and our role. Number six, they want all Black men to be exempt from military service. Number seven, we want an immediate end to police brutality and the murder of Black people. Number eight, they said we want freedom for all Black men held in federal, state, county, and city prisons and jails. Number nine, they said we want all Black people, when brought to trial, to be tried in the court by a jury of their peer group or people from the Black community. And number 10, they said we want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, peace. Those were their 10 demands, written on October 15th, 1966 in Oakland, California. But, and there's a big but here, here's my connection to Sean Combs. They demanded 10 things of the system. A lot of folks don't remember that before a lot of this went down, Diddy, who a lot of us thought was like the owner and producer of Ciroc, he was going to sue that liquor company for racial discrimination, right? There was a demand made by Diddy then. The Black Panthers had a demand, 10 demands. But did you also know that the Black Panthers had at least 37 internal rules? 37 internal rules, at the very least. I'm going to just read a few of them. Like 8 points of attention they had. Speak politely. Pay fairly for what you buy. Return everything you borrow. Pay for anything you damage. Do not hit or swear at people. Do not damage property or crops of the poor. Do not take liberties with women. Number 8, if we ever have to take captives, do not ill-treat them, because the Black Panthers were getting it in a lot of times with the, police issues. So number 8 was important for them, right? No party member can have narcotics or weed in his possession while doing party work. Any party member found shooting narcotics will be expelled from the party. No party member can be drunk while doing daily party work. Like, I can go on and on, but the point I'm trying to make is they had 10 demands of the system and 37 demands of themselves internally. We got to be accountable to ourselves. We got to have discipline for ourselves. Discipline is freedom. We must heal ourselves internally first. Now, we know we ain't perfect. No group of people are perfect. But in order to truly demand justice and liberation, you must have an idea and picture of what that means for you internally first. Can you liberate yourself internally while a system seeks to shackle you externally at all times? Every great leader of ours that demanded freedom, that saw within them to fight back, whether it be physically, whether it be passive aggressively, whether it be by running away. Harriet Tubman, for example, they did so because they knew internally they did not demand the shackles and they deserved to be free. Like I said, Harriet Tubman, the same Harriet Tubman who came back for her family on Christmas Eve, Christmas night, to rescue her family. The same Harriet Tubman that made trips back and forth several times because she knew it wasn't enough just for her to be free. She had to also deliver others. That internal freedom that she gained led to her external freedom, which led to not just a freedom for her friends and family, but it ultimately led to a destruction of a system of chattel enslavement. When we demand more of ourselves, when we begin to free ourselves mentally and spiritually, internally, that ultimately leads to an external fight for freedom. Or it can ultimately lead just to that system toppling by itself. 10 demands of the system, 10-point plan, 37 internal rules. Let's do some more math. At least 65 programs that they produced for the community that were open to everybody. They did not have to pay. They received donations to do this work, mutual aid to serve the community. Now let's do the math. Sean Combs was never held accountable. Sean Combs thought he could do whatever he could because he was rich. He was a wealthy black man. He was what he believed was black excellence. And he took advantage of every single person he could on his way to what he felt was the top. Whether you were a family member, whether you were a friend, whether you were a business partner or otherwise, anybody could get it and everybody got it in his way. Sean Combs never had to hold himself accountable because in this system tells you that you don't. If you got money, you are exempt from the rules. That's what we have learned from wealthy white men over the course of history. But we don't want to follow those rules. We want to be righteous. So he did all of that. And eventually these cycles, they come back because we know things don't just get better with times, but that cycle will come back around inevitably. Eventually, he met his match. A woman spoke up. See, the Black Panthers, 8 points of attention under these 37 internal rules said, number 7, do not take liberties with women. If there was some accountability, again, they made this stuff in the 60s and the 70s. This is before his time. We could all be learning from that in this moment. Let's all learn from that in this moment. All those billions he had couldn't save him from the lack of accountability and discipline that he possessed, that he did not work towards. No accountability there. He harmed our community. And I still don't feel like those victims got the justice they deserve. Conversely, the Black Panthers demanded 10 things of the system, demanded at least 37 things from their members, in addition to 12 weeks of political education, reading 2 hours a day. Everybody had a role to play. We're going to have to continue this conversation on them, y'all. Everybody had a role because to get organized, you must be in an organization and you must, to complete the entire body, right? So the body can function properly, you must assume the role of an organ to be organized so the body can produce the way it needs to, right? 65 programs were also produced from this, at least. Our liberation, y'all, as a community of people, as a human society, rests in our ability to imagine what we can create outside of this. And that starts with us disciplining ourselves within this system. It's not an easy thing to do because capitalism seeks to leech and pull every single thing from you and makes you only feel valuable when you possess what they deem to be valuable, but we are more than that. So we got to stop recording. We got to find different ways to produce justice for ourselves. We have to surround people who are harmed and let them know that they are okay, that they can heal. We have to pull our brothers to the side early on in life when we see them going astray and let them know that even though you may have gotten away with that wasn't right. And if you don't change your ways eventually, and 35 years from now, you're going to have to pay for the damage you've caused, for the harm you've caused to communities. So look, y'all, unfortunately, it's time for me to get out of here. This has been another great class. I could keep going on and on, but hey, y'all got homework to do or life work to do. I got papers to grade from you. Here's your life work. Here's your life work. I need you to make sure that you are in an organization. To get organized, you must be in an organization. And I want you, while in this organization, to devise things that you can create that are not being provided by this system at a high level or degree. To get a better idea of that, I'm going to recommend that you read this book that I have had on display this entire time called Revolution in Our Time, the Black Panther Party's Promise to the People. All right, make sure you check that book out by Kikla Magoon. And of course, as always, I'm still searching for sponsors. So until then, like I said, this episode is sponsored by your local library and my book. Make sure you got How Black History Can Save Your Life. That book came out in March of 2025. Highly recommended. And in closing, don't forget, a chicken just doesn't have it within its system to produce a duck egg. It can't do it. It can only produce according to what that particular system was constructed to produce. The system in this country cannot produce freedom for an Afro-American. It is impossible for this system, this economic system, this political system, this system, period. It's impossible for this system as it stands to produce freedom right now for the black man in this country. And if ever a chicken did produce a duck egg, I'm quite sure you would say it was certainly a revolutionary chicken. Malcolm X. See y'all next time.